Welcome, horror fam, to HHN 365, a Halloween Horror Nights podcast. My name is Duff, and as always, I am here with my co host, Jonathan.
Hello.
Hey, welcome. What's up? Just us this week.
Yeah, we got a fun topic to talk about.
We do. But before we get into that, please follow us on social media. That's Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at HHN365, our TikTok at HHN365pod. Check our link in the description to join our Discord, where year round, 24/7, we are discussing Halloween Horror Nights and other haunts and generic stuff as well. It's very active, very fun, especially if you want to talk about the rumors going on right now.
Mhm.
Check out our merch shop at hhn365.com. And if you want to leave a voicemail where you can join us here on the show, that's 407-906-4134. And on today's show, we're going to be go over our wish list for HHN 34. And this isn't a wish list of, I want this property to come. This is, think more like operational things and just kind of the ethos of the event and not super specific properties or anything like that.
Yeah. There's no reason to really get into properties at this point when we're so far into rumor season and there's so many properties being,
Hmm.
floated around. Uh, but the general stuff, especially thinking about last year and how some changes were made and everything, I think that's just going to be really interesting to hear some of your thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. We're gonna kick it off with a few other things before we get to that main segment, though. First, a couple 365 news tidbits. We are now back to doing YouTube live. We had a nice, oh geez, 8 month gap, about maybe 7 months. It was a while, but we are now back to doing YouTube lives. We have started just this past Tuesday, and we plan on doing them every Tuesday. That's every week, weekly YouTube lives moving forward. So expect these podcast episodes on Mondays, YouTube lives on Tuesdays, and then check our social medias for every other day throughout the week where we are trying to get back on track with TikTok and other stuff like that. So you should be seeing a lot more from us in general, but if you want to come, especially for these YouTube lives, we have a ton of fun. It's super engaging, and we just get to have fun with you guys. So it's probably my favorite thing to do in the moment. I don't know how you feel about that. Actually, I think you kind of agree, don't you?
I do. We were talking about it. It's like a podcast, just like we're doing right now, but we get to interact with you guys, and it's something that's just really unique and fun. And it's always fun just talking with the community and answering questions and thoughts and reading just funny comments. There's nothing really like it.
Yeah, it's the best way to engage with everyone, um, and it just makes it so fun. So yeah, we're gonna pimp out the 365 YouTube again. Go subscribe, please. The lives are going to be consistent. You're going to see shorts on there as well at times. The podcast also goes out on our YouTube if you want to be able to watch there. Not video, still just audio, but it is on YouTube. And then down the line, probably some other just videos. So go subscribe. And we also do have news and rumors. Jonathan, do you want to take us over to Hollywood for this part?
I do. And we're actually going to go right into one of our favorite segments on the podcast. I'm not going to sing it, but it's Murdy Tweets, where we talk about tweets that creative director John Murdy of HHN Hollywood has made that may or may not reference this year's, past years, or future years of HHN Hollywood. And the first one is kind of a funny one, but sometimes I like throwing these in. And Murdy has getting a lot more active on Twitter. There was a while where he just wasn't talking, like a couple months where there wasn't really any tweets to talk about. But now I think we're back into Murdy tweets at full force. And the first tweet is that Murdy responded to the question, "Will the White Six have a house this year?" And he responded to this question with, "No, there's going to be a Haystack Calhoun versus Man Mountain Mike house, since that was the last wrestling event I attended, which was at the Olympic Auditorium downtown LA in the early 1970s."
Well, um, we could take this literally. Um, and I think I would lean that It he's saying it as actually no and then just turning it into a joke. Um, but would it surprise anyone if he's actually just lying and this is how he skirts around saying it's coming?
Oh, this Murdy does this all the time.
Yeah, it would not be uncommon. I don't I get the sense that this is a real no, actually, um, but Murdy will fake you out sometimes.
He will. I will say, of like as funny as this is, it does make me wonder if it is, if White Six is happening, and that rumor is true. Which I think right now we're both kind of leaning on no on that
Mhm.
particular rumor. But let's say it was, and that was the reality, and both coasts got it. Would we be afraid of how Murdy would handle it? Um, because
Um,
we know Orlando, the Orlando team loves wrestling. We've seen pictures.
yeah.
Aiello has made it very clear. But I don't think Murdy really does. And I think this tweet kind of it's a joke and funny, but I think that also kind of proves that.
Yeah, I don't I I'd be very concerned if Murdy is writing a treatment on this. Um, it would be one thing if he basically just takes Orlando's treatment and then goes from there. But this does feel like a property that you have to be invested in and care about to make it work. It's not something that you could just like turn on a movie and oh, I get it now. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
yeah, it would be concerning unless he is a very secret wrestling fan and really keeps it under wraps. But that does not seem to be the case.
Yeah, no, I agree. I absolutely agree. So if it doesn't happen, maybe it's good for Hollywood side
It would
that it
seem
isn't.
so. It would seem so.
Do you want to take us into our next tweet?
Yeah, sure. So Murdy told everyone that he's recently completed a house treatment for HHN. However, it is not for this year. And he says, I quote, not because of any changes in the lineup, just because, huh,
Dun dun dun.
it's fun. Um, he did he confirm it's 2026?
Mhm. He
Okay,
did.
so he confirmed it's for 2026. Um, and he also researched 80s synth movie scores for this treatment.
That's exciting. I
That
like that
is
little tidbit.
yeah. Yeah, that's very exciting.
What could this be? Like, do we think it's just an IP that he got really early, or is just like an original that he just did and was like, I can do it early because why not? I don't have to worry about any negotiations and stuff. I could just get this house done and then worry about the other houses later. Like, what do we think this is?
I would say that if it is for an IP, giving away that you're looking into multiple 80s synth scores is kind of interesting.
Mhm.
Why multiple? What IP would that be? You know what I mean?
I don't know.
Is it like In Search of Darkness, you know that documentary, but they're doing a house about it? I don't know. I feel like I would lean original just because like you're looking into that for like inspiration. Um I don't know. I really don't know.
I mean, honestly, the answer him saying just because could just be like he got inspiration, artists do, and you had to write it down. It was just a
Mhm.
case of I have an idea and I just need to, I have all these other treatments pretty much done. I only have two more to go for this year. But this idea is in my head and I just want to get it down on paper immediately or else I'm gonna lose it. And it could be a case of that.
Yeah. I mean, why not? Right? If you have a good idea, go with it.
Mhm.
Even if you know you can't use it right away. Sounds smart to me.
Yep, and whatever this is, that little tidbit makes me very excited for
Mhm.
next year. Uh,
What else did he have for us, Jonathan?
this one's a very quick one, but it's sad. It could be in the in memorial segment if we did Hollywood.
Oh, wait,
But
hold on.
okay, you said the animatronics in a quiet place, the puppets, they were destroyed.
Oh, no.
They
Oh,
cost so
yeah.
much money.
Yeah, that's a lot of money down the drain, isn't it?
So much. Like with Chucky,
Yikes.
you can reuse the bones, and they have reused the bones, but I get you can't really reuse the bones of a death angel. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, that would be real tough.
Mhm.
That'd be real tough. Oh,
But
well, I mean, that's part of the cost of an event like this, so
yeah, and it shows it, I guess, that Hollywood and Orlando, I assume the same thing happened in Orlando, are willing to make these advanced, well, Hollywood technically made all of them, but, advanced animatronics for just one house and then throw them in the trash. They don't always
mhm,
have to be like a Chucky and be reused.
yeah. I mean, I'm sure they're also not as expensive as Chucky's, so
That's true. Very true.
there's that.
Yeah.
But there is one last thing we're gonna talk about we got from John Murdy on Twitter, and that is that, he was asked if Slash would be scoring a house at HHN Hollywood this year. Um, he said, "Yeah, he is."
Whoa. I mean,
Um,
it's funny, but that actually opens a lot of questions.
yeah, it's pretty funny that he was just like, "Yeah, of course, yeah. Well, why not?"
He holds
Thanks
so
for your
much
honesty.
back, but
I
then
like that you're transparent, bro, but damn.
mhm.
Um, Now this is interesting because typically, not always, but typically, this has been for the Universal Monsters houses. He has done it for an original, Clowns 3D in 2014, but recent history would say Universal Monsters house. It has been heavily rumored this year through insiders that there will not be a Universal Monsters house on either coast. So, Jonathan, I know you kind of have three theories where this could go.
We got 3 theories, 3 options. I'm taking the theory of a slash, I like, just Slash's house out of the equation. So 3 theories. The first is that it's for an original house, like Clowns 3D in 2014. Slash would be scoring another original, because maybe they didn't get monsters this year, and Murdy's like, "Hey Slash, you're still my buddy. Let's go do a house. It might not be monsters, but it's okay." That's theory 1. Theory 2, it's a Hollywood exclusive Universal Monsters house. Orlando decided in this theory that they didn't want monsters for one way or the other, most likely because of Dark Universe right across the street, but also Eternal Bloodlines didn't do so hot on the coast as well, and maybe that plays a part in it. But Murdy doesn't care about that because his last couple monsters houses didn't do so well, and he still likes doing them. So could be a Hollywood exclusive monsters house, or insiders were 100% wrong, not just 50% wrong, and the monsters will appear at both coasts once again. And those are the 3 options, I think. And I'm curious what option you're leaning towards, stuff.
I will say I think your three options are probably the most likely. The other ones would be more out there. Like you said, a slash house, which I guess technically kind of would be an original, technically an IP, but it
Mhm.
could kind of fall into that bucket. If I had to guess, I would probably just slightly lean towards Monsters being a Hollywood exclusive. Um, I think that went over very well in 2019 with Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. I think Murdy has done his best work when they were not working directly with Orlando on the Monsters houses. So going back to that and having a history of doing it if Orlando's not, why not? I mean,
Yeah.
Orlando had a house that year, but that was their first Monsters house of this iteration in 2019.
Yeah,
So
they were a year behind, so Hollywood's like, "I'm
yeah,
gonna do my own
Hollywood did
thing."
their very own thing, a version that Orlando's never touched at this day. So
Mhm. And I know that one wasn't super well received, but looking at past videos of it, it looks better than a lot of the stuff we've gotten recently.
I mean, I would say it wasn't as well received at the time in the sense that people were like, not as good as last year's. But going back to it, it seems like people remember it being pretty good and think of it fondly at this point.
Mhm. It broke
Whereas
the
I think
curse.
like Hollywood's Unmasked, I don't think it's going to have that same feeling for people.
No.
It was not popular, and I don't think it will
Only thing Unmasked will have is constantly giving me nightmares of the Jekyll and Hyde room.
be.
Hide and seek. Ugh.
Hide and seek was fun.
It was fun and terrifying at the same time. Uh, um,
Which one are you leaning towards?
I'm gonna lean towards what you're thinking as well. I think it's Hollywood exclusive. I kind of, in my theory, I kind of gave my reasons of why I would say this. I feel like Orlando has a very good reason not to do monsters this year. Two very good reasons. One being Dark Universe. It's Dark Universe doesn't really affect Hollywood because it's opposite coast. Um, but it would affect Orlando. It's right there. People are coming for most people are coming for Epic Universe and HHN as an add-on, frankly. And I don't know if you want we talked about it a little bit on the live actually. You brought it up. I don't know if they'd want two different versions of the monsters because we know HHN monsters are different than Epic Universe monsters. They're different designs,
Hmm.
different characters, so to speak. I don't know if they want both of them for its first year opening. I don't think it'd matter later, but for its first year opening at the same time. I think there could be a reason why they would go against that. And also, Eternal Bloodlines didn't do so hot. Most people, like we just actually put out a tweet about what people thought about Eternal Bloodlines. And while there were some positive responses, I'd say most of them were negative. I think the majority of the public did not like this house. I
It
think
was pretty overwhelmingly negative, I'd say. Yeah.
if you were a casual fan or just casual, you go to HHN once, you didn't understand the story. If you did go to HHN a lot, like we did, you thought the story, how it compared to Bride of Frankenstein Lives, for the most part flopped and didn't live up to it. No matter what side of the public you were, I don't think you really liked this house. In
Hmm.
overgeneralization, so I could see Orlando saying we need a creative break and a year off, and what a better time to do it than there's Dark Universe right next door, so monsters are already having like a presence in the resort that
Yeah.
year. You know.
Not being neglected fully.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. While I think that probably is the case, it will be sad. It's only been in Orlando since 2019 in this form, this universe of the Universal monsters they've created. But it's like been so integral to the house lineup. It feels like it's been around for like 15 plus years at this point. Like it feels like it's just something that's been there every single year. Uh, when in reality, it's only is that 5?
Yeah, if 29, what
Yeah,
would we do? No, 29, and then
that's only
honestly
5
count
years.
light. Yeah, so 29 light, and then 30, 31, 32, 33. That would be,
I
I mean,
I
if
I, I wasn't counting light, but yeah.
I think light's a big part of it though.
I
A
mean,
lot
it is.
we've
You're right. You're
Mhm,
right. That's fair. But still, point stands.
exactly. Yeah.
It has been such an important piece of this event that like it feels like it's been way longer than it has that it's been around.
It's gonna be sad having a year with possibly no Monsters House,
Hmm.
because I think there's so many people that wanna see Creature, there's so many people that wanna see so many other characters done in different ways, um, and it's gonna feel like there's a hole, but I think overall, I'm okay with it because I want that creative reset. I really do.
Yeah.
I I don't want some similar like, I don't wanna go back to Egypt, I'm done. Stop taking me back to
Whoa,
Egypt.
whoa, whoa, whoa. Well, you know what? I could go back again.
No, we just oh god. I need some different characters than just, vampire, wolf, and, and mummy. Like, we need some variation again. And I just think having a year off will help with that and give people some more time to really sit and think, "What could be the next
Hmm.
house?"
And I will actually always appreciate Eternal Bloodlines for what it tried to do with its high level story.
Mhm,
Unfortunately, in the house, it just became too convoluted and it was almost impossible for them to tell it the way it needed to be laid out for everyone to understand. And like not even understand it fully, like understand it at all in some cases. Like,
mhm,
I talk to some people, like if I brought like friends or family who aren't as in touch and don't pay attention to the event at the level we do, who like which have zero idea what's going on, none at all. It
mhm.
just was like kind of random chaos.
I I I literally remember my first run, and I walked out of the house, and I'm just like, "I don't know what happened." Like, I saw a spoiler that Saskia died, like, the night before, but I didn't see it where? Like, where did that happen? Was there a scare missing? I'm like, "No, there wasn't. I saw the house as intended, just didn't tell it at all."
Yeah, I was very lucky. I still think my best run of this house ever might have been opening night somehow,
Mm,
at least from a story perspective, because like I caught everything you needed to see.
mhm.
So that was nice. That at least I got to go through the house and went ah 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 ah.
Those are the sounds you made
Yes.
every time
I
thing
mean,
happened.
honestly,
Ah,
when shit like that happens, I do go, "Ah, oh, oh, I see. Yeah, 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 yeah."
the the she wolf goes down on the bungee. Ooh, yes, this is interesting.
I'm taking notes. Yes, yes. We have a review podcast coming up. But that's enough about HHN 33. I think that is a good point for us to just go right into HHN 34 and talk about our wish list, which again is not us saying what houses we want to see, what scare zones, what shows, more about the operational aspects and just kind of the vibe and what the event is and how it presents itself. We
Yeah,
typically do this every year. I feel like we've missed one recently. I don't remember if it was last year or the year before. But, we have done these in the past, so you may kind of understand what we're about to go for. Um, but I think we could just hop right into it here. Jonathan, would you like to kick us off with your first, wish for HHN 34?
absolutely. And it's funny that you just while you were going over some options, you said shows because I kind of want to dive right into this wish list item here. I don't know how realistic is it is. I don't know what the likelihood of it coming true is this year. But I want the Lagoon show back. Like, I want it back really badly. I think last year not having it hurt the event a lot, not only capacity reasons, but just not having something else to do besides houses and zones, um, really hurt. I felt like sometimes I just needed to go all the way to Dead Coconut in City Walk, which was fantastic, but
Mhm,
because I needed something else to do, and I felt like the park wasn't giving me enough when everything was super long waits and the scare zones were crowded. There was nothing else to do besides watch Nightmare Fuel, which that was also crowded. You weren't getting in unless you plan 30, 40 minutes in advance. The Lagoon Show is such a perfect way that anyone can casually walk up, besides maybe the opening night, but every other night you can casually walk up like 10 minutes before the show starts, or sometimes even five, or even as it started, you can find a decent spot. Stand there with the drink or some I'm still remembering 31 Reuben fries if they
mhm,
existed anymore. And just watch something for like 10, 15 minutes and feel re-energized, ready to go back out into the park and get all the spooky vibes, injected back into your veins. It's a nice breather. I don't think the event had that this year. And or last year. And I really want it back.
mhm.
Especially with Rip Ride Rocket gone. I think that would help a lot too.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty straightforward wish, right? Like, give us back the Lagoon show. I think 99% people would agree with that. I agree with that. I need it back in my life. I think every iteration we've had has at least been enjoyable. Um, even if Carnage Factory was not the best example of it, it was still something I'd happily go hang out, watch. Like you said, I perfect time to bring my snack over that I just bought and hang out and
Mhm.
have a drink. It was great. Still, even though the show wasn't the best version of itself, still a good time.
Absolutely.
It's a nice people eater, so it helps with flow in general. There's really no negatives from the guest perspective, at the very least, to bring this back.
Mhm. I can see the negative from the company perspective though. Money.
Yeah, money.
Ah,
That's absolutely the answer.
yeah. But what's your first wish?
So I think I'm going to keep my first one pretty simple too. And it's simple because I think I've said it on every version of this episode we've done because it has not changed yet. And that is more beer options. And specifically, I mean more craft and more local beer options.
Mm,
I will say, since we've started this, it's gotten a tad better. Like the past 2 years, we've had the Bloody Murder IPA, which is a local brewery. Crooked Can makes that. Also, it is made for HHN. So that's cool. I like that. If we could get more beers brewed specifically for HHN, love that. But it doesn't even have to be that. Just give me the option. I don't want to pull up to like those carts and it's nothing but Bud Light and Coors Light, Miller's Light, whatever they have. Like
mhm,
there's so many of those little booths, and that's the only option. Then you go to one of the larger bars and you can get like Bloody Murder, a whole hog, and Oktoberfest. But that's it. That's really all you get. Um, so if you are into beers that are a bit more tasty than Bud Light, um, your options are very limited. Of course, they do have Lexo Cooler and have for several years now, but that's not going to be everyone's taste. I appreciate it is there. It's a great option to have, um, but I need more, please, because I go to the event basically every night. Most nights, I'm gonna at least get a beer. So I'd like not to just keep drinking Bloody Murder every single night. That'd be nice.
I think that's a solid wish. One that I'm happy they are improving upon, but they can do a lot better. Absolutely. And I don't really have much else to say besides like that's a good idea. I totally agree with it.
Yeah, and you know what? Now that I think about it, they have improved slightly in the fact that, again, the Bloody Murder is kind of like a beer made for them. That's nice to have. Uh, but I mentioned how like if you go to like just the carts, like outside of queues and stuff like that, there's no like good beer option. Period. I
Mhm.
know for a fact at HHN 29, they did have better beer options at those carts because I used to get a Pulp Friction, a beer from Motorworks, delicious IPA, from those carts all the time. I'd always specifically before I went into like graveyard games, there was a cart outside, grab it from there, take it in queue. So we've grown a little bit and taken a couple steps back in other places.
We have. And I mean, speaking about taking a couple steps back in other places, they if I remember correctly, didn't they take the beer options away from that main like where HHN bar was? Like wasn't there
Yes,
no beer there?
great point. Yeah, so everyone knows the HHN bar, right? And it's kind of storied before. It was a food and beverage outlet, kind of like it is now during Mardi Gras. This past year, they made it for alcohol or beverages only. Um, for some reason, they did not have taps, no beer taps. So even though they went to a full beverage outlet, took away the food, they took away the taps with the food. Why?
That's a
So,
great
like,
question.
you could only get canned beer and then cocktails, and listen, we know how we feel about HHN cocktails. They're never gonna be our favorite. They're just sweet, and, we don't need to talk about that. That's talked about plenty, but yeah, another step back. Good point out there, Jonathan.
Yeah, I'm always here to help. Um,
Well, what do you have as your next one?
I kinda wanna stick with the topic of bars that we sorta
Ooh,
just went into. Because last year there was a change that I think was a change for the worse. We've seen an evolution of this location. The first time it popped up, Lombard's bar, you know, super empty, super relaxed, no one knew about it, it was a super nice place. Second year, they expanded it to Peacock Bar, and it was busy every single night. There were character meet and greets. You got to see David as Pumpkins, which memorable moments were made with him. And it just was a party area, just a really cool area to get a drink and have meet and greets. And even if you didn't drink, you can get meet and greets there. And it just was an overall fun experience. Then the next year, they turned it into Fanta Bar, and it was fucking garbage. It was like it had nothing. It was just here's Fanta ads and here's a bar, and no one went there. And it felt so sad after having Peacock Bar the year before, with it always being so lively and bustling, and the year after just a ghost town. And they didn't even have great drinks there either.
oh
Um,
no, it only kept the worst part of Peacock Bar, and that's the drink quality.
yeah. So, what I wanna see return is that location becoming a full-on, not just bar, but, like, experience again, like the Peacock Bar was, with better drinks. I want better drinks there too. Um, I understand that maybe in the future, the HHN bar is the route they're gonna wanna go with that sorta stuff, but I don't know. I think the Lombard's location is cooler. I think it's better. I think it has a lotta space. I think it has areas for meet and greets. Um,
And they
Pe
could both exist too.
They both
Like
can exist.
you don't have to stop HHN bar just because you also do Lombard's back to the way it was for Peacock Bar, you know?
Mhm, I agree. We can have both and split the crowds, but also not take away a amazing experience for, I'd say, kind of a subpar one. I think both should exist, and I think Lombard's bar, as much as cool as the quiet area is, I think it's time to keep going the Peacock bar route and make it more of an experience than just the chill place. But if it is a chill place, at least put good drinks there.
Mhm.
So I'll take either or.
And I think going back to Peacock Bar, one of the reasons I could see them potentially going, let's not do it like this again, is because that year it was still one of the few locations you can go to where there's hand poured drinks, which a lot of people are looking out for. They typically taste better than your pre batch cocktails.
Mhm,
Um, Last year, however, they really expanded where you can get hand poured cocktails. Um, so you'll not now have that combination of I'm just here for the characters and the bars next to it, and I need to be here because this is where I can get the drink I want. Um, People could just get them anywhere now, so it doesn't have to be as crowded as Peacock Bar would get sometimes. I mean, they still want to bring the crowds, obviously. That's kind of the fucking point, I guess, at the end of the day, right? But
mhm,
it won't be as bad, I think, now if they keep operationally doing hand pours across the park and really spread it out.
mhm.
So I think it'll be a good time to bring it back.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And last point, AI art, get that shit out of here. I don't want to see that in
No,
the park. Fuck that.
it was just it was bad without the AI. Like it was just bad completely. Everything about it. The AI, the whole concept. I understand like take the money, right? Why
Mm,
not? Take the money. It helps the event, but that was bad.
so bad. I remember
Wanta Hanta?
I was like just on YouTube or something, then a commercial popped up, and it was just like it was a Fanta ad, and it was like, "Want the Fanta?" And I got like PTSD. I'm like, "No, no, get this shit out of here, fucking
Don't you want it,
garbage."
Jonathan?
No, like that implementation of the event makes me not want to have Fanta ever again. Uh, Whatever. Anyways, what's your next wish?
So my next wish, I feel like when I say it is gonna sound like entitled, but please listen to my reasoning. Actually, talked about the reasoning a lot, so you might already know. Um, Low hanging fruit, I think, but don't do what you did with the Express add-ons last
Duff, you're entitled. I can't
year.
believe you'd say this. You can
um,
afford Express, you should not. I'm kidding.
so here, from my perspective, I could be completely off base here. It didn't seem to have the exact outcome they wanted. A lot of it was guys, it wasn't to free up Express. It was to sell more single night Express and make more money. They aren't just turning down money to have less people in Express.
Mhm,
Um, Express was fucking dead last year, which as an Express holder, nice because like you very rarely waited more than 10 to 15 minutes, like very rarely. Um, However, that means that Express was not selling for single night either. So they weren't making that additional money they wanted. People who wish they could have had Express just kind of didn't have it for no reason at that point, right? Um, Split up friend groups. I think a lot of people didn't enjoy the event the way they typically do because they couldn't always be with their friends. Like,
mhm.
and I know first world problem there, but like you pay a lot of money to be an express. You're not going to go stand in standby with your friends who you usually hang out with every night, right? Like that's just not how it's going to work.
No.
Um, Also, again, how it was handled. If you do want to limit express, when you've never done that before, especially to that extent, tell people, warning, do a lotteries as something, right? Like,
Mhm.
so maybe at the very least limit it less, and then kind of have a warning about what that limit is going to look like. Um, it just it did not go over very well with a lot of people, and I know people who don't get expressed. There was some rejoicing about that actually. Um, but were standby times really any shorter because of it?
Nope.
All right, well there we go.
I honestly, people say, I don't wanna harp on 33 too much because this is about looking toward the future, but it's important because this is an important aspect. Everyone says, "What was the problem with 33?" What was the issue? Was it the houses? Was it the zones? Was it the themes? And all those can be a factor. I think this is the biggest factor and will always be the biggest factor. When you have to decide between like what friend you can go with and who has expressed who doesn't, like splitting up parties, splitting up groups, having to split off in the middle of the day because the houses are no longer walk-ons, and you got to use your express because you paid like a shit ton of not just a little bit of a shit ton of money for that add-on. It just hurts. The event, as good as the houses are and zones and all that, is all about being with your friends and having connections like that, and having those communal experiences. And when you force people, not saying they're forcing you, but they kind of were, to split up like that and to hurt those connections and stuff at the event's gonna feel weak. Any event would feel weak if you couldn't go with your friends. Any
Mhm.
event, even 29, some that people say is the best years ever. Like, if you couldn't go with your best friends because of that, or go through houses with them at least, would you feel the same about the event? I don't think you would. So, I think that was the biggest problem with 33, and they need to figure out a way to address this and fix this for this year, or else people are going to be saying the same exact thing, mark my
Mhm.
words, about this year, regardless of quality of the event. If it has the same problem and does it the same way, we're going to see the same reaction.
Yeah. Yeah, and you just know people are gonna be refreshing their browser starting at 2 a.m. trying to make sure they
Hmm.
get their tickets this year. So, yeah, I think for me, that is a big thing that took enjoyment out of the event for me. And I had Express. So, like, this isn't like oh, I didn't have Express, so I hated it. It was sad that I didn't get to hang out with my friends nearly as much as I would like to. Also, they just spent less time at the event because they didn't have Express. So, people enjoy the event in different ways. And for some people, Express is kind of a necessity. So,
Just give the option. That's
that's it.
all we're asking. Just let either notify ahead of time or give just the option
And
all the
listen,
time.
I could
Yeah.
see a limit, a
Mhm.
limit of some sort, but it not that scarce.
No, I completely agree. All right. I'm sad now. That reminded me of a sad time. Let me go to something fun. A fun idea, a fun little wish list item. And that we sort of discussed it last year about like what if, right? And we were talking about how Major Sweets had a house in Fast and Furious, and it was awesome, fantastic house. House of the year in the Schmitties, which crazy. Um, you should go watch that or listen to that episode if you haven't already. And then you exited, and you entered. You walked out, and you saw Babyface's face just looking at you, and you're like, oh no, I'm in Blumhouse. Fuck. And it just took everything away. Like all the happiness you had in Sweets just like slowly left your soul. And you remembered and now you're in the enter the Blumhouse zone. Um, but then you could walk right over to San Francisco Candy Co. and you're back at Major Sweets. You're like, wow, I love this property. I love this original house. Look at his big face. I can see it. It's so cool. I can buy a big donut with gummy worms on it that they're gonna upsell because it seemed to mistreats. It's awesome. Um, what if that Fast and we talked about it on podcast previously? What if that Fast and Furious location was themed? Not Fast and Furious. What if that San Francisco location was themed to the house in Fast and Furious, especially now that we're exiting right from there? If they keep doing that, who knows? That could have been a one-time thing. But my main wish list item here is that I want Fast and Furious in San Francisco. Candy Company could too, if it is needed or could happen. But I want, most importantly, Fast and Furious and San Fran to connect in one interconnected story, or at least the same themes. Um, I think leaving a house and going directly into a zone that is not related to it all is so jarring. Like, it's not even like a sound stage where you have a little bit of a walk before you get into the streets. No, you're just right. You're right. You're thrown right in the zone. Um, so why not connect them? Like, it's just, it feels like an easy thing to do if it's a property you can easily connect like that. And I think it would improve everyone's experience with both things, with the zone and the house, and could, just improve theming altogether.
I mean, yeah, that seems like a pretty obvious thing they could have done. I'm sure they were hamstrung by an IP and where they can fit it, but yeah, would have been nice, wouldn't it?
Hmm. But they could do it in the future now, hopefully. Like, we now know the exit path works and where it dumps you out, and it doesn't cause that much problems with, okay, it causes some problems with flow if you build your zone like that. But if you don't build your zone like that, it won't cause that many problems with flow. And I think it's just a I think it's just a good idea to just do that for every year going forward. Just connect them this time.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. It has to be a story that works. It doesn't have to be every year, I guess. But if it is a story that makes sense and works to drag it out into the scare zone, please do that. That'd be great.
Mhm. Absolutely. What
Uh,
is your next wish?
I'm actually going to keep us in scare zones, Jonathan.
Ooh.
And I think one thing that they've kind of, I don't want to say lost sight in, but put less of a focus on in scare zones is the scare part of a scare zone. And I think plenty of times it is warranted. Think just back to last year, Torture Fair, where you really want to focus more on the interactions that immerse you, right? Still
Mhm.
have some scares, of course, but that's not going to be the main focus. Um, However, I think the way scare zones are laid out, and I know some of that can be attributed to just not having as much space. Guest flow takes up way too much now. Um, but the way scare zones are laid out are less promoting of the scares, I'll say. I think Swamp of the Undead did a decent job of trying to lay it out to really build the scares. That was kind of the zone last year where that was the focus a bit. Um, but only to an extent, right? And it's tough in Central Park because it's already such a limited space. So I really want to see more of that, more of the corners to work around, and just really giving them an environment where scaring can be the main focus from the scare actors. Because I feel like whether intended or not, um, in most zones and in most recent years, it's really just been the scare actors having to really work on creating some kind of persona and character to interact with to get the best out of their zones. And I appreciate that. I love that that's what happens. Um, but they typically don't have much to work with for scares outside of just running directly at you and getting the pure raw scare. Um, but that only works on a handful of people.
Mhm.
Um, and I want to feel that intensity in zones again, where you kind of have to feel like you're always looking over your shoulder. Um, Not all zones. Again, I do think there are plenty of zones where you can be more campy and goofy and fun. But I feel like annually, it's like four of the five are typically going to lean that way over really focusing on the scare.
I completely agree. I think a reason people really like Graveyard, um, Deadly Unrest from 31 is not only because of the vibes and the atmosphere and the sets and the care. Okay, well, everything was really good about that zone. But it was fucking scary.
Hmm.
Because they had props in the middle that actors could hide behind and pop out from, and had a gate that actors could just sort of, get out, run at you without you really seeing them. There were just lots of good scare moments, and I remember walking to that zone going, I don't get usually scared in scare zones that often. Besides a little, like a little jump, but that zone, like, legitimately was fucking terrifying, and it was a big space. It was a really big space, and they made it work. And I do think that's something that was missing last year. I cannot think the only time I remember the only time I really got scared in a zone was at the end of the night. I think a couple nights, but like one night in particular where I was walking through Torture Fair. It was like the last 5 minutes of the event. I was heading to a house, and the plague doctor was just walking my girlfriend, and then the plague doctor just started. I saw them at the end of the street, and they just sort of stood there, just stared at me, and I'm like, "Alright, what's gonna happen here? What's their plan? There's no one on their left, no one on their right. They're just in the middle, and, like, what are they gonna do here?" They fucking sprinted right at me. Like, I swear to God, if I did not move, they woulda ran right into me, and that scared the absolute shit out of me. Like, I almost fell down. I was not expecting that from an HHN scare zone in Orlando. Um, Scared the crap out of me. And I was like, "Yeah, I miss scares in the zone." So I agree. That's all to say. I agree. And
Yeah.
yes, that's a great wish.
And I think Graveyard was a great example. And you could take the stuff in the middle out too, because I know that makes a more difficult task for them, especially now with the parade in Hollywood specifically. But like,
Mhm.
even look at the ones they had on the side. Like everything there was designed for the scare actors to be able to scare.
Mhm.
They basically had boo holes to work with, like fully throughout that zone, and that helps a lot in being able to scare, right? Rather than think about like Demon Queens, where basically you kind of had the gates, you had the stages, and that's it. Like they didn't really have anything to work with. It was just them out in the street, and that's it. You know, a lot of the scares are going to be surprise, and
Yep.
it's tough to do it with that as your atmosphere to work with.
Completely agree. So yeah, that's fantastic wish, and I hope it comes true for both of us.
Well, what do you have next, Jonathan?
Ooh, I have a lot of options. What do I want next? Oh, this one's kind of fun. It's about flow. Um, and I think it could happen. I think there's a possibility of it happening this year, but right now it's still a wish. Um, we just got two new tents in the back, and it's a great setup. We got a fantastic setup, two wonderful locations. I feel like this year they're going to be used even to a better extent than they did last year. You get to go in the back, you get to pick your house. It's a better formula than the parade buildings. Great idea, Universal. Um, Here's the problem though, that area last year had an original and an IP, but not really one of the headliners and not one that everyone's gonna run to. Um, and so I would say the back of the park, especially near the end of the night, just was like usually a dead zone. You could just go, like over, do the houses over and over and over again, which was great for me. But I kind of want to see a headliner IP, one of them in the
Mm,
tents. You can have the other one be an original, that's fine, but I want there to be a big reason that people are gonna wanna go back there because I think that will help flow tremendously instead of just sticking all the IPs back in the front. Um, Going down there is a long trek, and, you have to give a people a reason to wanna make that trek. Say there's, talking about a rumor this year, "Hey, there's Terrifiers back there. Go," now you'll have to go and take that walk, and it will just split up crowds and make things a lot more calm in the front, so it's not, like, just insane over there. So it's a simple wish, it's something just about flow and logistics, but I think it's kinda needed. I would really like that.
yeah, I think that's a great way to do it. I mean, a talk we've had over the years of how can we spread out these IPs to really get better guest flow. And sometimes we've seen it when they've done the parade warehouse where it's not really been successful and has kind of created log jams more earlier in the night than anything else. But um, spreading stuff out will still help for sure. Because again, everything in the front that's just going to keep the sound stages, not necessarily them themselves, but everything outside of it, that area, just busy, nonstop busy all night. Um, so yeah, I think that would be a great idea.
Hell yeah. What is your next wish?
So for my next one, I think I'm going to go and talk about the music of the event a bit.
Ooh.
I first want to go back to something like HHN 29 to set the tone here. HHN 29, think about the music itself. It's not necessarily direct horror. Like it can work. A lot of the single tracks they work. They could play along with it, but not. It's very much not direct horror. However, they all work so well together. Just in a playlist, they sound great together. They all fit right. Clearly works.
Mhm.
That all ties into the event theme. So the cohesiveness of all this music on every level was so good that it didn't matter that it wasn't horror. That doesn't necessarily fit a horror event, um, because it did because that's what the theme was. And I really just want to see more events use a fully cohesive music loop to really elevate the event. I think some years they really try to lean into like more horror music. Like think about HHN 30. It was just kind of like a lot of metal,
Mhm.
right? So they lean into that sometimes. Sometimes it's just about trying to find a cohesive kind of playlist. Think 32, 33, both really good examples. Where like, yeah, this music all kind of works together and isn't like going against the event theme, but it's not really playing into it either.
Mhm.
We need it all. It all needs to tie in together because think about how special that HHN 29 loop is to a lot of people and how much they go back and listen to it. I know you're one of them.
Yes.
Like, yeah, the music's good, but it's more than that. Jonathan, would you see yourself just sitting down and listening to a synth playlist if it wasn't for HHN 29?
Probably not, unless I was in a very specific mood that day, probably not.
Hmm. It's all because of what it was able to do with the event.
It's the
Um,
connection, it's the
mhm,
memories you have with it that just ties it all together.
yep. And I think I I could see that they definitely tried to make it cohesive, especially in the past couple of years. And I think 31 to an extent, maybe they missed the mark kind of on tying it all together, but there was an effort. But it feels like it's gotten off track from trying to really tie in with the event as a whole. And that could also have something to do with maybe sometimes the event doesn't have a strong theme. Um, I also think that's very important. So I guess if we kind of want to toss it in there,
Mhm.
I need a strong vibe to the event in general, and a massive part of that is the music.
It's a huge part. It creates the identity. I mean, other things do too, but music is the thing you're gonna be focused on like the entire night. You're never gonna not hear that music unless you're in a specific area of the park. So you want that music to be tied to the theme to just leave you remembering that song and remembering that year. It all connects. It all connects. And I really think what happened here is HHN got a little they heard the responses of 31's music, and most people didn't like there were problems. Main problem being way too short of a loop, which I think has gotten better now, but it's hard to tell because I don't remember the music really in 32 and but especially 33. But it was too short of a loop, and the lyrics were too earwormy. They got into people's heads, and it felt like just after a while the same song, Another Way Out, was going over and over and over again. Um, but I'm one of the rare people who thinks, like, I really like that loop, and that part did not annoy me, and because that part didn't annoy me, I was like, "Man, I'm really feeling this Halloween vibe, this classic Halloween vibe, the music is fitting in, this year just feels so thematically consistent." I'm so happy I can connect the music to a year, and it's great. 31's one of my favorite years, but then 32 and 33, I think they heard the complaints of 31 and went, "Let's just go safe." And they've been safe. The past 2 years, they've been really safe. It hasn't been earwormy, but I wouldn't say it's been memorable either besides a couple of songs. Um, I think it's time you had 2 years of being safe to get a little ballsy and to take a risk. Might not work. You might have another 31 for some people, but I want the music to connect to the identity again, and I think it's time to take a swing.
Well, Jonathan, do you have one last wish on your wish list?
One last wish. Oh, I have so many, but I'm gonna have to just pick one, and I'm gonna go. See, I could go like the more interesting one, but I can also go the one that like I have more passion, and I think I'm gonna do that, even if I've said it sometimes on this podcast. I need more Q videos or Q music. Um, I need it bad. I think that helps houses so much, so much. We're thinking about, think about we talked about suites before, but think about suites and hearing that music in the queue, just getting you pumped, getting you settled into the time period and the atmosphere and the tone the house was going to take. The references to the zone and it all being the same playlist helped as well for people who experienced that. But even if they didn't, just you know, it got you excited for the house. Um, the the music in Oddfellow, right? Having that music in the queue got you ready, and hearing Dark as Steel music from the outside of the facade, like music and queue videos too. That we did we have a queue video last year? Trying to think.
I mean, technically, Slaughter Cinema had a ton.
Technically, it was hard to see in the queue until you were like right up
Yeah.
there. They did not they did not only did not they placed it a little weird, but they didn't put the speakers in the back where you could hear it. Um, all you could hear were the commercials playing. Even when the commercials weren't playing, you could barely hear the trailers if you were like in the back of the queue
Yeah,
or even
that's
in the
true.
middle of it. Um, whatever. We're not talking about that. But I think Q videos and Q music. I want that to be a factor for every location that can. Because I think it's super important, and I know we've had it before in the past, but I want to see more. I especially Q videos. I just want to see more implementations of it because something I think just helps every single house. And while it's extra work, I think it ends up paying off. Um, unless if you're Chucky Ultimate Kill Count, where no matter how good your Q video is, it's not going to save you. But
Well, at least we have something good to remember from that house because of the Q video.
it's true. So
So
yeah,
there you
that
go.
that's my wish. More Q videos slash Q music, depending on location.
Yeah, obviously that's one of those things. It's just that additional touch that is so nice when it's there. So that's an obvious yes. But also, like, almost more importantly, just not having such repetitive trailers and music playing because,
Yes.
man, it gets annoying.
So tired of them. I'm so tired of them also being in places that actually hurt like the story of the house, like
Hmm.
Slaughter Cinema.
Yep.
Like just houses that like there's so many places that you put that there and you're just totally taken out of what they're trying to immerse you in as you're waiting in that queue.
Yep. I think there's so many reasons and so many ways they can improve what is being played on those Q screens, but I think Q videos or like pre-show style videos for the house you're going into would definitely be the best option. At least most fun for us as guests.
I want one for a sprung again, like
Oh,
bugs,
yeah,
and
I
but the
know.
the problem is if it rains, it's destroyed, and so it's not worth it. But like I want it.
Hmm. I wish, man. You never know.
uh,
You never know. Could
it's
still
true.
get it.
Mm.
So I
And
guess
what's
I
your
do.
last wish?
Yeah, one left. And I feel like this entire time I've been like, well, here's what HHN doesn't do, and I want them to, or something along those lines. So I want to be nicer to HHN because they do deserve it. Because obviously I love the event. I think it's great. Um, Insidious last year.
Oh,
I love the approach for an IP. I feel like sometimes, and of course, it's going to depend on the rights they're given and how much they're allowed to play with it. Which obviously, if it's not much, it's just going to be like do a book report. Not much you could do about that one. I get it.
mhm,
But there are plenty that's not the case, and I feel like they typically almost try to do too much. You know, which
mhm.
sounds weird because I want them to take it and run with it if they can. But Insidious is just taking the IP and shoving it in your face, ramming it down your throat. Like, this is what Insidious is. This is what they do. And we're going to lean into that intensity. And it fucking worked. It's now a property that's come at least to Orlando twice. And both times I was kind of like, oh, well, okay, Insidious, whatever. And both times shut everyone up.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid to just fucking do the IP, right? Like, not book report. Don't mean it like that, but just take what the IP is and fucking ram it. Push it as hard as you can.
Oh my god. What wonderful quote stuff.
Make sure you clip those for the preview of the episode.
Yeah, exactly. Those yep, I'm 100% taking that.
Um, but yeah, I think don't try to get too too fancy with what you do with the IPs. Um, some of them, give it a shot, sure. But for some of them, like Insidious especially, that style, just fucking go with what it is. And it, it,
So,
it came out to be a great experience because they did.
would you say that, out of some of the rumors that are around this year, Terrifier would be a good example of doing something like
Great
that?
example. Yeah. I think because that is something we've talked about where like it seems like they could very much go for a super original form of it, which I do think would be cool. But I feel like it's almost like more of a sure thing if you just take Art the Clown and have him come and fuck shit up.
You have the facade
Just
be
throw it in your face. You don't have to try to build this more elaborate original story. You don't have to focus on crazy scenic.
mhm,
Just do it what he's best at.
show the kills, show interactions,
Mhm.
with the character, just Art doing Art things, Art's sidekicks other demented partners and stuff like that. Just throw them in. It's like a movie like Terrifier is like Insidious, and where the story does not matter.
Mhm.
It does not matter. It never did. It's bare bones and usually nothing. 3 was better, but still, that's generally the Terrifier series. That's generally the Insidious series. To take it in that approach, I think everyone will be happier for it instead of trying to tell a story and we also don't need a Terrifier ultimate kill count type like crazy elaborate thing either. Like trying to think of, oh, it's something that Art took over and then Art then this and just try nope, just simple stuff. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I feel like I may not have articulated that wish too much, eh, or at
I
least
mean,
very well, and I don't know if I can. So I know there's people out there right now like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" But at least you caught on.
I did. But now the universe didn't catch on, so it's just gonna be a bunch of black walls with just like Terrifier. Just be like just actually just being like shoved like a mask of Terrifier just being literally shoved in your face.
Mhm. Exactly.
That
That's what I'm asking for. Slap me.
well, there we go. Those are our wishes for HHN 34.
There it is. And if our historical hit rate is correct, I think none of these will happen.
Nice. So excited.
Yay. Um, but yeah, I think they were all, even from you, I agreed with all of them. Pretty solid choices.
Even from you. I appreciate that, Duff.
You're welcome. Yeah, we have different tastes sometimes. You never
We
know.
do. We do. I didn't go too crazy this time.
No, you didn't. You didn't. You could have been like, I want more leather faced food. Real
Exactly.
bad.
Doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if he's at the event. I want the barbecue booth, the gas station every year. I
If
don't
I
care.
don't get the fucking leather face cherry pie, I'm gonna lose my shit.
I never had that.
Did you really not?
I never ate
Oh,
it
that's
that year.
surprising.
I had the barbecue, which I thought was kind of it's fine. It was very high price for very
It
low
was.
value.
The flavor was decent, but
It was good flavor. Coca
very
Cola
small portion.
barbecue. Yeah. Never had the pie dough. I regret it to this day.
Yeah, no, you
Not really, but
yeah. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. And that will wrap it up for this week. So once again, I'm going to push our YouTube because we're back to doing YouTube lives. Again, that's going to be weekly every Tuesday. Well, these podcast episodes will be dropping weekly every Monday. So go subscribe to our YouTube. That's at HHN365. Our Twitter and Instagram also at HHN365. Our TikTok, HHN365pod. You're going to want to check out our Discord as well. Very active with news, rumors, memes, a lot of memes. That link is going to be in the description. Check out our merch shop, hhn365.com. And if you want to join us here on the episode, leave us a voicemail at 407-906-4134. And that's all for today. We'll see you in the streets.